The X's and O's of player safety, a playbook to keep your players safe both on and off the field. Offensive safety playbook, how to keep your players safe before they even enter the game. The EAP, Emergency Action Plan Pro-Style Offense. Many programs at the youth and high school level are not fortunate enough to have an athletic trainers on site for home and away games, let alone practices. This leaves coaches responsible for more than the execution of game plans. They are also responsible for the safety and protection of their players. Just as a left tackle is responsible for protecting the quarterback's blind side, coaches need to be prepared to respond in the event of an emergency on the field, sideline, or perhaps the weight room. The best practices against being sacked by an injury is to implement and frequently practice an emergency action plan or pre-snap huddle. Key components of an emergency action plan include designating who will be responsible for dialing 911 in emergency situations, informing players and coaches of where emergency equipment is located, designating who will be responsible for guiding emergency personnel into the venue, appointing who will be responsible for contacting the parent of the injured athlete, designating who will ride in an ambulance with the injured athlete, and appointing who will be responsible for crowd control, giving directions to the closest fire station, designating who will stay at the venue with the rest of the team. An emergency action plan, or pre-snap huddle, is like an all-pro left tackle. It works best when it gets a lot of snaps. When the emergency action plan, or pre-snap huddle, is not practiced, it can be likened to the left tackle missing an assignment. It is like a sack, mismanaged emergency situation waiting to happen. Everyone on the team needs to know their assignment in order to run successful plays and win games. It is just as important that everyone knows their assignment when an emergency takes place. Coaches, parents, and players should be aware of the EAP. It should be posted someplace where everyone can access it. It is also important that it is venue specific. The weight room, practice field, and game field should all have an individualized emergency action plan. The plan should be practiced before the start of conditioning season and again before regular season games as often as possible. The defensive safety playbook, how to keep your players safe in practices and games. Mismanaged emergency situations end in unfortunate tragedies. 2 Georgia coaches have been charged with second-degree murder and the heat-related death of a 16-year-old. The temperature during practice, according to the Bell's family attorneys, was between 96 and 99 degrees Fahrenheit, and the heat index put the temperature at between 101 and 106 degrees. Due to the extreme heat and humidity outside, Amani began experiencing early signs of heat illness and was visibly struggling to physically perform the outdoor conditioning drills the defendants directed her to perform. The lawsuit reads, defendants observed Amani experiencing early signs of heat illness during the outdoor practice, but nevertheless directed Amani to continue performing the conditioning drills with her team and directed Amani to run up the stadium steps. Hunter Midkiff was a 6'1", 250-pound guard and defensive end for the Piggott High School in Piggott, Arkansas. At practice, Midkiff collapsed and suffered a heat stroke. When he collapsed, Midkiff's temperature was 106.9 degrees. The temperature in Piggott was 90 degrees with a heat index of 105 degrees, according to the National Weather Service website. Midkiff was taken to the Piggott Community Hospital, then later airlifted to Le Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, for an emergency liver transplant. Piggott is 53 miles northeast of Jonesboro in northeast Arkansas and 106 miles away from Memphis. The Piggott junior football player died due to complications from the liver transplant. He was 16. Zachary Martin Posenburg was 6'5", 320-pound junior lineman at Riverdale High School in Florida. Posenburg suddenly collapsed during a morning workout and was immediately taken to Jalisano Children's Hospital, where he was diagnosed with heat stroke, suffered internal injuries, and fell into a coma. On June 29th, the day he collapsed, The National Weather Service listed the high temperature that day at Page Field as 92 degrees. His core temperature registered 107 degrees for more than an hour. Posenburg was transferred to a hospital in Miami on Thursday, where he died. He was 16 years old. Remy Hidalgo, a high school football player, died after suffering apparent heat stroke and collapsing during practice in Louisiana, his friends and family said. Remy Hidalgo, a junior at Denham Springs High School, collapsed after suffering an apparent heat stroke, died on Friday, 3 days after he collapsed on a football field as practice was ending. Remy was rushed to Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital in Baton Rouge, where when he arrived unconscious with a 106-degree fever. Doctors fully believe Remy had a heat stroke. The best defenses are disciplined. Some are led by the middle linebacker. He is considered the quarterback of the defense. He calls out pre-snap adjustments to his teammates before the ball is snapped so that the defense is in the best position to counter and neutralize the play that the offense is about to run. When it comes to player safety, knowing the signs, symptoms, and treatment for various injuries is like having a great signal caller in your linebacking core. Traumatic injuries usually occur during the first few days of conditioning season. When we are eager to get back in shape, we sometimes neglect to pace athletes and give them the time to properly acclimatize to the rigors and demands of workouts and weather conditions. Coaches need to be aware of the following during conditioning season and throughout the season. Be aware of an athlete's medical conditions such as allergies, sickle cell trait, etc. Sickle cell trait is the most prevalent amongst African Americans. Be aware of the signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion, core body temperatures greater than 104 degrees, heavy sweating, cold, pale, and clammy skin, dizziness, headache, muscle cramps, weakness, and fast, weak pulse. The treatment: move the athlete to a shaded or air-conditioned area. Remove extra clothing and equipment. Cool with cold water, fans, or cold towels. Have the athlete lie comfortable with legs above the heart level. If the athlete is nauseated or vomiting, have them drink chilled water or a chilled sports drink. The athlete's condition should improve rapidly. However, if there is little to no improvement, have the athlete transported for emergency medical treatment. Be aware of the signs and symptoms of heat stroke. Body temperature greater than 104 degrees. This is a need for immediate treatment. The only valid method of an accurate reading is through a rectal thermometer. When your core temperature reaches greater than 104 degrees, it's the equivalent of your internal organs being in a microwave oven. Cns Dysfunction, which is your central nervous system. Weakness, loss of muscle strength, lack of coordination, impaired mental ability, tremors and seizures, slurred speech, new language impairment, expression and comprehension. Dizziness, confusion, irrational behavior, aggressiveness, seizures, coma, hot and dry skin, hypotension, tachycardia, hyperventilation, vomiting, diarrhea, and convulsions. Treatment: recognize heat stroke quickly. Properly assess the temperature accurately using a rectal thermometer. If you don't have a rectal thermometer, use the rule of thumb. The average size student athlete, their temperature decreases 1 degree after every 3 minutes in a cold water tub. A larger athlete, in regards to your lineman, larger athletes' temperature decreases 1 degree for every 5 minutes in a cold water tub. Rapid cooling, using cold water tubs, cold towels, the taco method. And remember, hospitals do not have cold water tubs waiting in the ER. So always cool first, transport second. Once the core body temperature is below 103 degrees, put the student athlete in ice and water first, then call 911. Be aware of the signs and symptoms of exertional sickling, a condition where sickle cell trait carriers' red blood cells sickle under exertional stress, decreasing blood flow that can lead to ischemia or rhabdomyolysis. Risk factors: heat stress, dehydration, asthma, illness, and attitude stress. Signs and symptoms: generalized muscle cramping and pain, typically in the lower extremities and back, swelling, weakness, fatigue, inability to catch one's breath. Preventive measures, recognition and monitoring athletes with sickle cell trait. Slowly training progression with longer rest and recovery periods, and the availability of supplemental oxygen when the athlete with sickle cell trait trains or competes in higher altitudes. As the saying goes, the best offense is a good defense. In terms of player safety, knowledge is your best defense. Knowing the signs, symptoms, and treatment modalities for injuries will prepare you to win when they happen. The Special Teams Safety Playbook. How everyone can keep players safe during practices, workouts, and games. The best special teams units display accuracy, speed, quickness, and discipline. The kicker is accurate. A good kicker rarely misses extra points or field goals. The snapper is also accurate and makes certain that the holder gets the ball where it is needed to make the field goals and extra points with ease. Good pointers control field position. They pin opponents deep in their own territory and get their team out of bad field position when pinned deep in their own territory. The gunner is one of the fastest downfield and usually the first to get to the returner. The best gunners are short tacklers. Jammers try to prevent the gunners from stopping the kick returner. They are relentless blockers. All players on special teams play an important role in the outcome of a game. None may be more explosive than the kick returner. However, great kick returners are quick, shifty, and lightning fast. They can change the momentum or break a game open in a matter of seconds. It takes all the personnel on special teams to know and execute their assignments to make game-changing and winning plays. When we think of player safety, parents, coaches, and players need to be in sync like a great special teams unit. They need to be on the same page in the playbook when it comes to knowing the signs, symptoms of heat-related illnesses, sudden cardiac arrest, and concussions. Knowing who will contact the parent in the event of an emergency. Any allergies or medical conditions, such as sickle cell trait an athlete has. Always make sure you have access to their inhalers, EpiPens, or all other medicines that they may need at that time. Who will ride with the injured athlete, and all necessary emergency contact information. When players, parents, and coaches work together as a unit, they can prevent injuries from becoming tragedies. This was brought to you by the Cool First, Transport Second, Inflatable Team and Solo Tubs, and the Jordan McNair Foundation. The JordanMcNairFoundation.org.